For countrywide, the friction started to become sneakers in when the Federal Reserve began to raise interest rates. Normally, rate increases signal that it's time for mortgage originators to pull back on land production, but in this new world, land production did not decline, just like Kurland, who worried that higher rates brought increased risk of the foul fail has thought they were trying to hold back afloat in later moments. They began to joke that they were becoming the CNOs, the chief nonsense officer. Conla complained to confidence that one some days he felt his role was increasingly being regulated to that of the no guy, the people who are propelled upward in many cases in corporate America. Um, the guys who says yes to an idea that worked, he later told a friend. The goose who said no to a big failure, there's no leads for that. That's why we end up with bubbles. When Countrywide had first moved into subprime lending back in the late Cornell and Mozilla had both believed that the market was moving toward risk-based pricing and the lines between prime and subprime were going to weigh, and they convinced themselves that Countrywide will establish standards that will keep the truly troubled borrowers away while capturing the more credit-worthy subprime borrowers, those who were just a step below prime. In Italy, the company was very careful. Curline used three rules for subprime lending at Countrywide, according to several former executives. First, all of its subprime loans had to be sold, by which he meant the entire thing, including the residuals that most subprime companies held on their books. Second, the borrowers had to either make a 20% down payment or get mortgage insurance to cover the first 20% of the loan. Finally, Countrywide couldn't offer any subprime loans products that had a higher probability of default than if HA or BA loan. The rules, however, seemed to constrain the company less and less as time went on, and whatever reservations Mozilla had about subprime lending seemed to fade bigger the market got. Within a few years of marking subprime loans, Countrywide could offer an astonish different products. The American banker accused Mozilla of sounding like a carnival burger, as he listed some of them. We have ARMs 1 year, ARMs 3 years, 5 years, 7 and 10 years. We have interest-only loans, pay option loans, zero down programs, low or no tax programs, FATS and AC programs, and subprime loans. Sambal told investors that it's our intent to carry every product or program for which there is reasonable demand. If your customers can legitimately qualify for a loan anywhere else in the USA, they qualify at Countrywide. In a complaint the SEC later filed against Mozilla, Sambal, and former CFO Eric Sierraki, the agency allied that countrywide referent to this has its mission strategy. If a competitor offered a launch product, countrywide will watch it. Besides, will Wall Street willing to buy anything? Mortgage issuers willing to quarantine anything? And estimates about the probability of default open to subteams, Kernel's rules could be rendered basically meaningless. In that, one former executive says that if he could go back and do one thing differently, he will look at the models about how balloons were supposed to perform and say, I'm going to believe them. He had meeting where I would say, are you sure you're comfortable with that? Say this person. And they will bring in the quants, and so the meshing strategy come to mean that countrywide repeatedly lost its guidance for both the lands its own sales force originated and the loans it purchased from others according to the SEC. Other subprime companies, for instance, adopted a loan strategy called risk layering, in which two or three different risks, NODOC, adjustable rate, credit, impairment borrower, were grouped together in one loan. These were rates that were never meant to coexist, and blending them greatly increased the chance of default. Yet since countrywide competitors were making rigs layered loans, countrywide made them too. It was madness. Subprime was reached just rarely hit rates for borrowers with bad credit. St. John's Rosser, that difference than the loan itself being a bad product. When you are the biggest, you have a responsibility to not give credibility to both products, whether you're countrywide, Fannie, Freddie, or any of the big mortgage lenders out there that were doing this, says a former country executives. Countrywide did just the opposite by mimicking the products of competitors, no matter how dangerous. It gave them an imprimatur they didn't reserve. There was a finally problem with the company subprime's guidelines. If a borrower couldn't meet the guidelines, countrywide would try make the land work anyway. This was not some rogue effort by aggressive branch manager to sidestep the rules. It was the rule. Countrywide called it in the accepting pricing system. Every lender had some version of this, but according to the SEC, Countrywide liberally used its expression policy for loans that didn't fit into even the loosened guidelines. One former countrywide executive says that Mozilla that sales first to list to sample, not kernel. In its complaint, the SEC corroborates that in part, saying the company's rules about a kind of subprime loan now has the customer took out to loans in order to borrow of the money needed to purchase a home were ignored by the production division in John M. C. Murrah, Countrywide's chief risk officer, wrote in an emails to Sambor. As a consequence of Countrywide's strategy to have the widest product line in the industry, we are clearly out on the frontier into many layers. The frontier, MC Murray added, had Higger expect the fall rates and loss. Those in the industry could see the change, even if Mozilla still refused to acknowledged it, said a former industry executive. Roland Arnold thought he Angelo was a hypocrite. It was an hot thing countrywide action earlier than two countrywide was in the same game.